approaching the winter meetings, which actually I believe start on Monday. I believe it's a Monday through Thursday type of thing. It's totally possible that the media comes in early on these on Saturday, Sunday, one of these types of days, just to get prepared for everything that's going to happen in the winter meetings. And the reason why we highlight this is because this is when typically there is a lot more action that takes place. When you have everybody in one room, there's a lot more conversations, and when you have more conversations, a lot of teams start to get a little bit more desperate to be able to go out and make some moves. So we'll be curious to see if the Dodgers are one of those teams who have been relatively quiet to this point in the offseason start to make some traction, start to make some moves to really help improve their roster, the 2026 version of the Los Angeles Dodgers.
What are you expecting? I think you pretty much nailed the sentiment. Now, it could change at any moment. The Dodgers could change their mind and decide to be aggressive. But literally, I mean, I think what's coming out of the camp is exactly what the sentiment that you gave on our show Wednesday night, that Edwin Diaz is too expensive. We haven't even got into the outfielders. So kind of where are you at with all that? Do you think the Dodgers are just trying to play the leverage game there, or what do you think?
So I think it's a little bit leverage game, but I think they really are trying to wrestle with that philosophical battle that we discussed on Wednesday. So if you were not able to watch the show on Wednesday, I highly encourage you guys to go back and watch that show, because one of the things that I outlined, and this is something that, especially if you're listening to what the Dodgers are doing and trying to figure out what the Dodgers are actually going to do, they are at a little bit of a crux between trying to go ahead and maximizing this very key window, Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman, while also preserving the reign of the Los Angeles Dodgers and having sustainable success. And that is the balance that the Los Angeles Dodgers during this offseason, that's really what the key of this offseason is. It's maximizing the window that you have while balancing sustainable success, because we've talked about this Dodgers window, and you asked me a really key question. I actually don't think I answered it 100% to the degree that it should have, because I think Helen mentioned it in the comment section. The Dodgers window has been opened for the past 13 seasons because they have gone out there and had 12 out of 13 years in which they won a National League West championship. And what that's allowed them to do is continually, year after year, be in a position where they could potentially make a World Series championship. So the question is, with an Edwin Diaz type of move, is that, even if it's in a couple of years down the road, going to lessen the degree or add too many players that are going to be aging to your roster that are going to lessen your chances of going out and either making a move to make sure that you're sustainable, or by having too many older players that are going to weaken the lineup to where you're not going to have the same level of sustainable success going forward. And I think with the Dodgers evaluation process with Edwin Diaz, it has nothing to do with him as a player. I think they see him as a very good player, just like every single one of us can see. He is an extraordinary closer. The question is that type of investment going to be the right investment to be able to make to the Los Angeles Dodgers with financial wise, which they do have to pay basically double because of the luxury tax situation, which I don't think plays as much of a key, but plays certainly at least a little bit of a key to the Los Angeles Dodgers. But it's the years that it's going to cost to get an Edwin Diaz. And I think the 5 years, the number of years that it's going to cost, is one where the Dodgers are much more hesitant, because this is an area in which the Dodgers have been able to attack and be able to address in alternative fashions before, and they believe that they can do it again.
The Dodgers did not want to go. They wanted Devin Williams pretty bad, did not want to go the 3 years. Guess how many years they signed Tanner Scott?
They signed Tanner Scott last year to 4 years.
Yeah, so that's one of those deals to where they probably feel like, at least at this point, they oversigned Tanner Scott. And so the last thing so I really think, maybe I got a tinfoil hat on, but I just really think the Kirby Yates and Tanner Scott thing has the Dodgers spooked. Like, okay, well, the Kirby Yates thing was a 1 year deal, whatever, but 4 years with Tanner Scott, if he doesn't figure this out, this is a pretty big hickey on this roster in terms of moving forward. And, hey, he was kind of our one mulligan, if you will. Like, hey, we can have one of these guys not hit and be okay, even if it's a pretty lucratively bad contract. We can't really have any more than that. So I think Tanner Scott was their one contract where they swung for the fences. It didn't work. And so now they're really like, man, we can't do this twice. So if they do go get Edwin Diaz, it has to work, I think, in their mind.
Yeah, they look at relievers, and last year with Tanner Scott, obviously that contract didn't really work out for the Los Angeles Dodgers last year. Obviously, Tanner Scott was not the same pitcher that he was, but one of the ways, and I mentioned this yesterday, and I think it is so true, one of the ways that you have sustainable success is by continuing to go out and make smart decisions as an organization. Last year in free agency, if you look at just the overall class of what they were able to produce last year, it was a little bit of a disappointment from what the Dodgers paid to the production that they were able to get. You mentioned Tanner Scott, Kirby Yates, obviously were disappointments to the club. Michael Conforto as well was more of a disappointment. But even a guy like a Blake Treinen severely underperformed from what he did last year. Teoscar Hernandez, who we can have a conversation about whether or not, because there's been some reports, been some rumors and stuff with Teoscar Hernandez.
It's been around for a while, too.
It's been around for a little while, but he underperformed last year as well by Fangraphs, just 0.6 Fangraphs WAR, which is not what you are expecting for Teoscar Hernandez, just a 7% above league average hitter for Teo last year, and obviously struggled defensively. Those are several contracts that did not work out well. Tommy Edman slightly underperformed from what he should have been valued for his extension. And then Blake Snell performed during the postseason. I'm not gonna punish him, but he did not pitch a whole lot during the regular season. And so you had a lot of contracts that the Dodgers gave out last year to where they felt like, on a production standpoint of the expected value that they should have got, they did not get. And this is something that I went through in detail with one of the articles that I went out. They underperformed by close to 11 WAR than what was expected if you have a $9 million per Fangraphs WAR value. They underperformed drastically, which does not happen under Andrew Friedman, which I think you might see a little bit more of we want to make sure that we're getting the best value for each one of these guys. And especially as the roster is aging, we have to get value for each signing that we're going to get, which means we're going to be strategic on the number of years we're going to go give out to each one of these guys, which could lead to a little bit of hesitation towards Devin Williams, maybe even a little bit of hesitation toward Edwin Diaz, as we're seeing right now.
We're going to get to the outfielders here in just a minute, but I'll tell you the one that's scratching my head, or at least I'm scratching my head. I don't know. I butchered that whole thing. Pete Fairbanks, what's going on here, man? He's like he's in the contract range. He seems like the tie. No, he's not the throw it 7,000 miles an hour and get a whole bunch of swing and miss, but he seems like he would be a really nice pivot.
Yeah, he seems like he could be a pretty nice pivot for the Los Angeles Dodgers. I just don't know if they like him in comparison to some of the other guys that they're seeing. If you look at his baseball savant for this past year.
Who else? Like who else?
Like, as I had mentioned, like a Brad Keller yesterday, or potentially like a Robert Suarez, or there's a couple of other ones that you could go to, a Luke Weaver maybe. There's a couple of different other guys that they could do, or they just have a comparison with Pete Fairbanks and some of their own guys within their system when they believe that they could get the exact same production that Pete Fairbanks provides with some of the guys in the system without taking up a roster spot that doesn't have any optionability to it. If you look at Pete Fairbanks, what's interesting about him is his chase and whiff percentage. It's not elite. It's right around league average type. And that's the thing with his strikeout and walk percentages. You're getting a pretty good pitcher, but it's kind of around mid-range, especially for those types of areas, which for the Dodgers, they're looking for more swing and miss out of the bullpen. They're looking for guys that have unique strengths. And while Pete Fairbanks, he throws hard, and he has been an effective pitcher, his expected ERA really solid last year and really limits barrels. I don't know if he is the exact guy that they're looking for, which the Dodgers know. And this is the difficult thing about relievers, is you can't just base it off of the numbers of what they did in the past. You're also looking about different ways to be able to maximize each one of these guys. And I don't know if Pete Fairbanks already has been maximized, and they're just not sure how to get him to the degree where guys are chasing at a very elite level. He's a really good pitcher, very well could be somebody the Dodgers pivot to, but from the reports right now, there doesn't seem to be an extraordinary amount of interest in Pete Fairbanks, which is a little bit confusing considering the years and the relatively affordable cost, but I trust the Dodgers with this process.
He does not have the elite swing and miss, and he hasn't shown that he can do it on the big stage. Would that be fair to say the Dodgers, that would be the two biggest reasons why the Dodgers might have hesitation?
That would probably be my guess. Would be.
I mean, if you have a guy that doesn't really have the experience on the big stage, it doesn't matter what you do in June. It matters what you do in October, November for the Dodgers. So if you have a guy that hasn't proven it in October, you might as well use Kyle Hurt and River Ryan. Now, I think that may be the way they're looking at that.
Yeah, I think that very well could be. You also look at his fastball velo. It just dropped down from being more in the 99-ish range, which was what it was in 2022 to 2023, to being more closer to the 97-ish range. So perhaps there's a little bit less bite on his fastball, a little bit less bite on his stuff that could be impacting his swing and miss capability. And it can be a little bit more difficult, especially as the guy is getting a little bit older. He's still only 31 years old, I think, entering his age 32 season, to where as a guy gets older, it's a little bit more difficult to be able to get that velocity back into the mix. And this goes down into all sorts of different components of the Dodgers, studying each one of these pitchers and the mechanics of all of them. And I'm sure they've done a deep dive and evaluation to the mechanics, because this is somebody that the Dodgers have been interested in, or are reportedly been interested in the past. And that means that they very well could still be. But from all reports right now, they're not aggressively pursuing Pete Fairbanks.
So if you want the elite arm, it's going to be Edwin Diaz. The Dodgers are saying they don't want to go 5 years. I think, like I said, I think the Tanner Scott contract is playing a factor in that, and the fact that has not paid off for them yet. Plus, if that does pay off, he is the closer type that we're talking about here in the offseason. So I think that transitions you into the trade market for a back-end reliever. Before we get into, I got a couple things I want to talk about here. I know we talked all about the Edwin Diaz in the last and the relievers in the last show, so we're not going to spend this entire show, I promise you, on relievers again. So I think if the Dodgers are making the statement, hey, we want about a 2-year contract here, you're going to have to dive into the trade market. Who would that be?
Yeah, that's a good question. That is actually something I've not done a whole lot of research in, and I've done just very brief research into trying to figure out what's going on. And really, the difficult part about that is there's not as many really elite type of arms, especially for short-term type of deals that you could potentially look for. I think in the comment section, one of the videos that we have, one of the names that was brought up was a guy like Cade Smith from Cleveland, but he still has 4 years of control. Plus, Cleveland, let's remember, Cleveland won the American League Central Division last year. They had to move off of manual Class A for on the field / off the field type of reasons. Cade Smith is their closing pitcher. I do not expect Cleveland to move off of a guy like him. And then you're looking at some of the other guys. I honestly am not sure who exactly is out there on the market trade value. And I don't know if that's the situation that the Dodgers want to go down. One of the reasons why the Dodgers did not go down the trade avenue during the trade deadline part of season is, one, the prices are increased at the trade deadline, but also they don't want to go ahead, especially in that type of market, to go and overpay with prospects for relievers. So they're kind of, as you mentioned, a little bit of a dilemma of that I see myself in, where they don't want to overpay with years for relievers. That has backfired for the Dodgers with Tanner Scott to this point in his deal, but they also don't want to utilize the prospects, which are really effective and really good, to use it for this specific piece. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't trade prospects for players. They should, if it's going to help improve your club in a significant way. They just don't see the impact of getting a relief pitcher through the trade market being as significant of an increase from what they have baseline or what they could get in free agency as it would be to go ahead and use those prospects to get something like a position player or a starting pitcher from what it would be baseline or free agency years type cost to what it be for the trade value. So I'm not really expecting trade unless it's an under the radar type of trade of somebody that we don't really expect and anticipate.
Yeah, like a Brock Stewart type trade. Okay, so I think your comment that, hey, the Dodgers, the restraint is the reason why they have been in position to win the NL West the last 13 years or whatever it has been. So the fact they've been smart, the fact they have restraint, that argument is absolutely spot on. I don't even think or that argument is even arguable, if you will. But I do disagree a little bit on the reasons why, that one move would be reckless versus the other. I do not think Edwin Diaz would be reckless, because I think he is in this window to maximize Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, and Freddie. We talked about that on last show. I think the point that you made, that's the biggest point in terms of making sure you're still in position to win a World Series even after this window, and you kind of move it to the next generation, like you went from the Cody Bellingers, the Corey Seagers, the Kenley Jansens, the Austin Barnes, the Chris Taylors. You kind of pass the baton from them to the Shohei Ohtanis, right? And so the next generation, for them to have a chance, I think the argument here, I think the point to make is Max Muncy, how much longer is he going to play third?
He's got one more year under contract, and then it's a complete question mark of how long he's going to be in the organization.
So how long is Mookie Betts going to play left field? Or not left field, but
he's going to play shortstop.
Shortstop.
If I had to guess, it would probably be another 2 to 3 seasons of him at shortstop before he transitions over to second base.
Maximum of 3, right? Mm-hmm. So you're going to need some buku buckos to refill the left side of your infield, possibly as soon as 2 years from now, right? Mm-hmm. And so one of the reasons why you don't give up is one of the reasons right now, of course, I always say give up the prospects. The Dodgers will replenish them. They'll find them. They'll develop them. They'll trade for them, whatever. But the biggest reasons why you say, well, you got a glut of outfielders. You got Zaire Hope. You got Josue De Paula, Zach Earhart, James Tibb III, Ryan Ward, Chris Newell, Cole Myers, Eduardo Quintero, Mike Sirota, Jaron Elkins. You got all these incredible young outfielders. You're never going to be able to get not even a quarter of these guys on your major league roster. There's absolutely no way that's going to happen. Andy Pages is still young. And so why are you going to hoard these guys? Well, because the guy that you're trading for right now is not that guy. And what I mean is you might be saving a Josue De Paula and a Zaire Hope to go get that guy, and that guy might be the next third baseman, or that guy might be the next shortstop here in a year or two that you're going to need all those chips to trade for. So I think the Dodgers might be playing a little future game here, a little 4D chess, making sure that if they do give away their chips, it's for a situation to where you're actually rebuilding the next generation of Dodgers.
Yeah, I think that is, I agree with you. I think that is probably the strongest argument for this. Yes. And let's put ourselves in the position of the 2020, after the 2027 season, for example. After the 2027 season is when a vast majority of these outfield prospects are going to be eligible for the Rule 5 draft, which means that there's going to be in a situation where the Dodgers are going to have 2 years of development for each one of these guys to evaluate which one of them can be part of the mold, potentially part of the equation for the Dodgers. And this is a situation where, man, the 40-man roster is going to be incredibly crowded. If you look after the 2026 season, there is a lot of talented players that are going to be eligible for the Rule 5 draft. Yep. You compound that with the 2027, and now you have a whole bunch of guys in which you're not exactly sure what to do, but you have a little bit of time at the beginning of the offseason to make some sort of determination, or you add some of these guys onto your roster. You combine that with the fact, as you had mentioned, let's say that Mookie Betts needs to move off a shortstop at that point just for his long-term health going into the end years of his contract. You have a situation where, man, you could use some of those guys to try to go out and trade for the final year of somebody like a Gunnar Henderson, who's going to be entering in free agency after the 2028 season. You could potentially use those guys to go out and, man, you need a shortstop? Go out and get somebody like an LED like Cruz, who will be at, I think it would only have 2 more years of team control after that. You could utilize these pieces, and you could trade for those guys, sign them to extension if they're performing well and you believe they're going to help your organization. And instead of paying the Edwin Diaz money now, using that later in a resource that's going to help your team in perhaps a more impactful way down the line. I think that's going to be, sometimes the restraint can be really important because it allows you to put yourself in situations where a couple years down the road, you can extend that window. And that's what a little bit of the restraint can help you do, because, man, losing out on an Edwin Diaz or signing Edwin Diaz, you lose out on the second highest draft pick and the 5th highest draft pick, plus $1 million in international bonus pool money. Not saying that those are going to turn out to be great players, but those could be pieces that you use to go ahead and get somebody down the line, and that you can use to be able to help make your team as good as possible in the long term. Plus, you can have some guys that are part of your system that can be effective as well out of the bullpen that you believe in.
So to sum that up, here in about 2 years, you're going to have all these young guys that have to be put on the 40-man roster, or they will get taken in the Rule 5 draft, and you will lose them for absolutely nothing. A lot of these guys, right?
Yes.
Here in a couple of years. Okay, so within a couple of years, you're going to have to put these guys on the 40-man roster. There's just not every single one of them, but quite a few of them, okay? So having said that, they are going to have to go on the 40-man. You're going to have room for them on the 40-man. And so the question is, do you if you're willing to trade Zaire Hope, Josue DePaula, Mike Sirota, Eduardo Quintero, James Tibbs III, Zach Earhart, if you're willing to part ways with these guys, okay? Do you want to part ways for those guys for Stephen Kwan, or do you want to part ways for those guys for Gunnar Henderson or whoever the next stud third? You mentioned, hey, maybe you don't want to be, when Gunnar Henderson becomes a free agent, you don't want to go that long-term contract. So you find that trade piece that's very, very, very good, that you go in between. So I think there's a little bit of, hey, yeah, we're willing to do what we need to do, but we just haven't quite found the right mix that's going to make that big of a difference. We have Ryan Ward. We have guys that we can bring Kike Hernandez back. We've already won the World Series basically with the team we have right now. We've won the last 2 World Series without a closer. So what's the point in giving up all these guys or tying up our 40-man roster here in a couple of years, which Edwin Diaz would do? What's the point in doing that whenever we're adding guys at positions that we already have won a World Series without that position being filled in? I think that's kind of where we're at right now. And so long story short or short story long, however you want to look at that, that kind of goes to the Dodgers this offseason are in a position of want. And when the Dodgers are in a position of want, they do as good a job as anybody in Major League Baseball at showing restraint.
Yeah, I think that is right. So just giving you a little bit of an idea of some of the players within the system of when they're going to be eligible for the Rule 5 draft. I'm going to go through a little bit of a list of names just so you can see some of the math problem that the Dodgers are going to be dealing with over the course of the next 2 seasons, which does not prevent the Dodgers from going out and making a trade right now. They actually should go out and make a trade right now because I believe it's going to be somebody that's going to help this team, especially on the offensive side. That's where I'm more in favor of. And you have a lot of different trade pieces. There are a lot of different guys with a ton of talent that a lot of other organizations are really wanting to covet and get to be part of their system. I think you can use some of these guys right now and use some of the pieces down the road to be able to go out and get somebody like a Gunnar Henderson. So it just has to be the right situation, and you have to think of long-term and short-term as well, just to make sure that you're maximizing your opportunities. So
but can you do that without depleting your system? That's the question.
I believe so. You have to identify. This is where the Dodgers are so good because they have to self-identify the talent that's in their system. They also have to find fits in areas of need because they're also going to want to utilize some of these guys to be able to help supplement the roster as well to make their team as good as possible. And because the Dodgers are going to have holes in the outfield in the next couple of years. Some of the guys that we're interested in targeting aren't the 5-year deal for an outfielder. They're the 2-year deal. So then the Dodgers could go ahead and utilize perhaps two of the outfielders to be able to add to the outfield mix. But just talking about some of the situation for the Dodgers in their minor league system of guys that are going to be eligible for the Rule 5 draft coming up. James Tibbs, Cole Myers, Zach Earhart, Mike Sirota, Zaire Hope, Kendall George, Eduardo Quintero, all eligible after the 2027 season. Josue DePaula.
They all have to go on the 40-man.
They all have to go on the 40-man. Josue DePaula after the 2026 season. Yeah. Looking at some of the other position players.
So by 2027, all of those guys have to be on the 40-man.
All of them have to be on the 40-man.
So if you sign the Edwin Diaz's and guys that have no options in this kind of deal, they clog up for long periods of time, you are literally looking at, by math, having to give away Josue DePaula or something like that for nothing. That's the math the Dodgers are up against. Not to say that's going to happen. That's the math they're up against.
You're going to have to deal with more complications of being able to fit these guys on the roster. Just talking about some of the other guys, this is some of the guys that might be a little bit down some of the list, but also incredibly talented players. Next year, Wags and Geloff are going to be eligible for the Rule 5 draft. Geloff, if you do not, I posted about him earlier today, 135 WRC plus during the second half of the season, was extraordinary down the stretch. Keep an eye out on him. Two really good players. Elijah Hangline, eligible after the 2027 season. He is coming off and really making a statement for himself. Some of the pitchers after 2026. Adam Serwanowski, Jackson Ferris, Patrick Copen, Wyatt Kroll, Luke Fox, all eligible for the Rule 5 draft. Christian Zazueta, who is eligible for the Rule 5 draft. Going through and then there's some names that are going to be in Great Lakes this season, like Peyton Martin after 2026, Tyler Goff after 2026, Sterling Paddock after 2027, Brooks Auger after 2027. Relievers also, Carson Hobbs next year, Cam Day next year would have to be added. Evan Shaw after 2027, he was phenomenal last year. Mack after 2026, Justin Chambers after 2027, Ryan Brown after 2026. You're talking about an extraordinary list of players that are going to have to be added, which means that the Dodgers have two areas that they can take, or two ways that they go on and approach this. They can look at this list and say, oh crap, we have a whole bunch of players. We need to trade some of these guys.
No doubt. The trade's the only way, yeah.
Which they absolutely are going to have to do, or they're going to have to look at some of these guys that are, or potentially look at some of the guys that are on the big league roster and say, how do we make all of this type of math work? Because we know that we're going to have to supplement some of the guys that are going to have three options. For example, next year with Carson Hobbs, once he is added to the roster, assuming that he is added to the roster, having a reliever as good as him with 3 option years to be able to add to the mix, when some of the guys that have option years are going to start having maybe 1 option year or no option years left, or very much diminished, you're going to have to supplement the roster at some point, which means not just the guys at the minor league level, but some of the guys at the major league level, balancing out that roster. But there's a lot of talent that is going to be coming into the mix, and that is good news because that provides many different options for the Dodgers to go down, which makes this offseason so unpredictable.
Yeah, I mean, they added one guy this year to protect him for the Rule 5, and that was Ronan Kopp. I think next year, who are the 2026ers for the Rule 5, Austin?
Okay, so it's difficult because I have to go through some of the lists. So
let's just do it one time. We got time. We went all into the. We've gone into the Stephen Kwan's debate. This is kind of fun here because this is the math. This is what really the Dodgers are up against.
So this is not including anybody that was this past year eligible for the Rule 5 draft. These are newcomers that are going to be eligible for the Rule 5 draft in 2026. Starting with the relievers and working my way back up with some of the guys on the list. Ryan Brown, Nicholas Cruz, Alex Makarowicz, Cam Day, Carson Hobbs is going to be eligible for the Rule 5 draft. Looking at some of the pitchers as well, Peyton Martin, really talented. Christian Zazueta, Wyatt Kroll, Luke Fox, Patrick Copen, Jackson Ferris, Adam Serwanowski, all going to be eligible.
Hold on. I'm going to say yes. So the Dodgers added 1, okay?
Yes.
This time next year, okay, Serwanowski, no doubt about it. Now, if they continue to improve it, you never know what's going to happen this year. They could get injured. Yeah, but just based on the ascension of them right now. So Carson Hobbs, I think, is going to get added. Okay. Yeah. Patrick Copen is going to get added. By the way, I interviewed Patrick Copen right before we came on. Going to release that next week. Austin and I, by the way, are talking to Fabian Ardaya on Monday. So how about that? Fabian Ardaya. I'm a little bit nervous for that. So I think Carson Hobbs is a definite yes for the 40-man yet next year. Serwanowski, a definite yes. Patrick Copen, a definite yes. Jackson Ferris, a definite yes. A guy like a Luke Fox and a Wyatt Kroll is a yes, we need to, but I'm not sure we have room because those 2 lefties are really good. So who am I missing here? Go over them again. I'll go one at a time and I'll say yes or no.
Okay, so we haven't even gotten to the position players on this. Yeah. So I'm just going to run. I'll just run through the list of relievers. You'll say if there's any. Well, this is difficult because man, you would want to protect more than these guys than just Carson Hobbs.
But Serwanowski is going to get protected. Jackson Ferris is going to get. Patrick Copen is going to get protected.
Yeah,
this reminds me of the Nick Frasso, Landon Knack, River Ryan group, that group. Kyle Hurt, where bang, bang, bang. Yeah, no doubt.
Oh, yeah. No, and even further down the list of some of the starting pitchers as well as Zazueta, Peyton Martin, Tyler Goff, who was just he was traded in the Robinson Ortiz trade, still a little bit younger. That's part of the mix. But some of the relievers like a Cam Day who broke out last season, really solid, going to make a lot of jumps. Makarowicz, who if he keeps it in the zone this upcoming season, his stuff is ridiculous. Ryan Brown, you mentioned in the interview with Sean Coyne, man. He's got some really good stuff. Nicholas Cruz,
but they would have to massively improve their execution right now. Yes. Without changing anything. What I'm trying to tell you is right now, without changing anything, Carson Hobbs, Patrick Copen, Serwanowski, and Ferris. Those 4, I think, are just slam dunks. I mean, right now, if nothing changes.
Okay, so then you have to protect Josue de Paula, assuming he's part of the mix.
That's five.
So that's five. And then you have some discussions of what you want to do with some of the third basemen like Wags, Logan Wagner, and Jake Geloff. If they take a lot of steps this upcoming season, and especially with Max Muncy entering free agency after next season, if you want a little bit of depth at the third base position, and if for example somebody like Jake Geloff, if he hits for as much power as he did during the later part of the season and during the final 2 months,
was awesome.
He was amazing. 13 home runs, 135 WRC plus. If he takes some steps, they're going to have some conversation about him.
I agree, but I'm only going to go into the if nothing changes.
Yes.
Those guys. And I'm at 5. If you add Josue de Paula, I'm at 5 guys. If nothing changes, are going to have to be added to the 40-man next year, or you're going to lose them to the Rule 5. So keep going. And then you're going to have another 7 or 8 guys that are, man, if they just tweak this or that, they're major leaguers, right? Like an Alex Makarowicz and guys like that. But right now I'm at 5 slam dunks if nothing changes. All right, here we go.
And that's not including the guys that were eligible this past season that could be taken or are going to be guys that are going to be around that. If they take a couple of steps, man, they're right on that list. The roster crunch at some point is going to become very real. And that's just after 2026. After 2027, you add in all of the other main outfielders that everybody talks about that are going to be part of the equation as well. So the math starts to get a little bit difficult down the road, but this is a great problem for the Dodgers to have because they have talent to be able to supplement this entire roster, and you invest in these guys.
So there's 5 slam dunks if everything stays the same. There's going to be about 7 of them where the Dodgers are going to go, I can't lose Cam Day. You got to realize Cam Day just hit 100 miles an hour. Yes, just ask anybody in the system, and I know you're going, who's that fat old son of a bitch talking about? What are you, Cam Day? Who in the hell is that? I know you're thinking that right now.
Yep.
Ask anybody. Just listen to the interviews I'm doing. Listen to Sean Coyne. Matter of fact, my Carson Hobbs interview on Monday. Listen to Carson Hobbs talk about Cam Day. I mean, he's like, oh, damn, this dude's dirty, right? I mean, this is one reliever. So I'm not saying he's going to get protected, but his execution piece isn't good enough yet. Same with Alex Makarowicz, okay? But what I'm trying to tell you is the Dodgers know the upside of these guys, and they know, man, if we give up Cam Day for nothing, he's going to go off and keep that 100-mile-an-hour fastball, that two-seam, that nasty sweeper, the nasty slider, and he's going to go kick our – we don't want that. So what I'm trying to tell you is there's going to be – I can't imagine from a numbers perspective, no matter how many guys you need to keep, you're not going to keep 5. You're not going to add 5. You're going to add like 3, right? So I think there's 2 slam dunks that need to be traded, and I think beyond that there's about 7 or 8 guys that might be taken in the Rule 5 draft that you don't want to risk losing in the Rule 5 draft that you probably would consider very heavily trading that will have trade value for an organization like the Nats or the Tampa Bay Devil Rays that do a lot of really good homework. If you remember when the Nats, whenever they got Keibert Ruiz, he was the headliner, but they also got JoJo and they got Gerardo Carrillo and they got some really good players beyond that. They did their homework. So I just don't see any situation to where, and then that doesn't even count the next guys in 2027, which is going to be the same numbers in that year. The Dodgers have to trade. The math will tell you that if they don't start trading some of these guys, they are going to lose them for nothing. That's not my opinion. That is what the mathematical statistics would tell you.
Yep, and yet they need some of these guys to be able to help be part of their system because they need supplemental pieces to be able to add into the mix, and they need non-40-man roster guys right now. And at this point in each one of their careers, they don't have to be added to the 40-man roster, which means they can develop them into be even better prospects. Perhaps you figure out some of the execution pieces with some of these guys, and then, man, they are looking really good, and you can utilize those guys in some sort of trade piece to where their value is even more increased from what it is right now. So this is a complicated factor. This is an incredibly good complicating factor. And this is a testament to the Dodgers' success as an organization and player development, which last year was really, really good. And the talent that they had is so good. And some of the guys that are even covered are it doesn't encapsulate all the different guys that are part of the mix that are so good. One of the guys in 2027 that I also highlighted that I'm glad got a special shout out in the Sean Coyne interview was Miles Caba. Cabo, was so good as a left-handed
you knew I was going
reliever.
to talk about corn on the cob. You knew that was going to happen, didn't you?
I know. He was so good. And that's another lefty that's part of the mix that was incredibly effective last year for Great Lakes. Down the stretch, .66 ERA in the final month of the seasons for Kaba. And with a 36
Hold on, let me
strikeout
go ahead
minus
and
walk
put some
percentage.
corn on the cob on the board. Go ahead and keep talking about it. I'm going to put him on the board.
Let's talk a little bit about Kaba, because I just put a post about him on X yesterday because he was somebody that was mentioned in the Sean Coyne interview. I put the clip of the Sean Coyne interview on there as well. But between Rancho and Great Lakes, man, 54 innings pitched, 3.17 ERA, and a 2.95 FIP with a 24.1 strikeout minus walk percentage between the two levels. That, or at least in Great Lakes, a 24.1 strikeout minus walk percentage in Great Lakes. I don't think you realize just how good that actually is.
He had one bad outing. That was it.
He had one bout outing right at the beginning, but his 24.1 strikeout minus walk percentage was 115% better than the league average Midwest League pitcher. That is elite stuff, and one of the most predictable stats of being able to go up and have success. And during his final month of the season, as mentioned, in his final 13 2/3 innings pitched, .66 ERA, 1.07 FIP, and a 36 strikeout minus walk percentage. Miles Kaba, undrafted free agent out of Miami, part of the situation. He is incredibly talented. And if you had a chance to be able to read through the Fangraphs article, they listed like 50 some guys that are part of the Dodger system, plus an additional, 10 or 12. Miles Kaba's name is not mentioned on that list. Yeah. Miles Kaba is incredibly good, and that shows you the depth of this system. Miles Kaba, his name was not mentioned on the list. Jake Geloff, who had a 135 WRC plus in the final 3 months of the season and was the offense for the great, or one of the main pieces of offense for the Great Lakes Loons down the stretch.
Definitely the clutch piece.
Oh, so clutch, and has a ton of power. With Jake Geloff, his ISO was second in the Midwest League of qualified hitters last year. Second best power hitter in the Midwest League last year was Jake Geloff with what he was able to produce. Both of those guys in the list that Fangraphs point out, not to be mentioned once. And that shows you the depth of the Dodger system, because there's a lot of other talented names that deserve to be mentioned. And Miles Kaba, Jake Geloff just shows you the depth that this Dodger system has.
Okay, let's get into conversation here. And anything can happen, and he's definitely talented enough. And he's been in minor league baseball long enough. But do you see Peter Hubeck getting taken in the Rule 5 draft? I personally would not if I was a major league club. I love Peter. I think he has a wonderful upside. But he was injured this past year, and I still think he's in the – I'm still trying to figure out exactly what my sequencing is going to be, what my exact mix is going to be. I still think he's kind of a tweener right now, and he didn't finish the season healthy. But I can tell you this, Peter Hubeck, I've talked to him several different times, both in person and on interviews, and I reached out to him, and he hasn't reached back, so that tells me I think he's waiting for the Rule 5 draft type deal to see if he wants to do any interviews. So I think it's a definite real possibility. I personally, he wouldn't be a guy that I would put on my 26-man roster, because I think he still has, I think, a year or two away from being a major league type. First of all, I think he has to show that he can be healthy, and then I think he needs to figure out his sequencing. And then once he figures out his sequencing, I think the execution will take over. And I still think he has a little bit to go in terms of growing into his body. So I'm not saying he won't get taken. I'm saying he probably wouldn't be one that I would take, and that doesn't mean that I don't love Peter Hubeck.
Yeah, so with Hubeck, I think if he would have finished off the season being healthy, which last year was his first season, first taste of Double-A baseball, which that is a massive step between Great Lakes and Tulsa. His first season of Double-A baseball, he had 16 starts under his belt before he got injured during the middle of the season. I think if he continued out the season, I think there would be a much higher chance because of the upside that Hubeck has, and with the ability to be able to work on a lot of the execution type pieces. Because even so, this is a starting pitcher that at the Double-A level had about a 28% strikeout percentage. Yeah, and he's got some really nasty stuff. The stuff is really good.
The spike curveball is good.
The spike curveball is really good. It is about putting those finishing pieces on him. And for a major league team to be able to commit a 26-man roster spot to a starting pitcher, that is a difficult ask for a lot of teams to be able to do. Not that they would utilize him necessarily as a starting pitcher. They might utilize him more of the bullpen to try to keep the talent.
I've never seen him come out of the bullpen. Have you?
I have not, but that is one of the. that is one of the strategies that major league teams have done in the past, is take starting pitchers and try to hide them as best as they can, just to hoard onto talent. And Peter Hubeck, no doubt, has the talent to be taken in the Rule 5 draft. It is whether a major league team wants to invest in a 26-man roster spot in him. It's a lot easier to be able to hide a relief pitcher on your 26-man roster than it is a starting pitcher and somebody who I don't believe has come out. He's come out in relief at least one. I think it was a piggyback start, actually, that he had with a Jared Karros back again when they were piggybacking against West Michigan. I think that's the only relief appearance that he's had. Otherwise, it's been mostly as a starting pitcher.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, you never can tell. And predicting the Rule 5 draft, of course, not very many guys get taken because you have to leave them on. That's why the Rule 5 draft argument always just frustrates the hell out of me. Like, oh, well, they have the Rule 5. The Rule 5 draft, like, because I always make the argument they need to reduce, like Ryan Ward. I think he should have been able to choose free agency or be on the Dodgers 40-man.
Yes.
I don't think the Dodgers should have just been able to say, hey, we're going to put you on the 40-man. Now you have 3 minor league options. We can keep you in Oklahoma City for another 3 years. Hey, cool, he got put on the 40-man, but I personally think they need to change it to where after whatever it is, your 6th year of minor league baseball, you get to choose free agency or to whatever you want to do at that point. It's your choice.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely right. So this is something, once Ryan Ward was protected, there was a yay, and then all of a sudden, oh no, are they going to do what I think they're going to do with Ryan Ward, which is keep him down in Oklahoma City? And with Ryan Ward, what you want to do with these guys, especially at the minor league level, and especially if you keep them for an extended period of time, is you want them to be able to have the best opportunity that they possibly can. And being added onto the 40-man roster of a major league team typically is the best opportunity that a guy can have. But it's not always. And I think what you had mentioned is something that's really important. And one of the areas where, if we talk about the collective bargaining agreement, one of the ways in which the players can go out and try to find ways to improve the relations and improve opportunities for each one of these players is just by a simple rule change of providing some sort of time period in which a player or a team has to add this player to the 40-man roster, at the very least to where the team loses out on an option year if they hoard him down in the minor league during his final year entering into before free agency, to where a major league or minor league player that gets added to the 40-man roster right before he's expected to enter minor league free agency doesn't get shifted down to the AAA level for an additional 3 years. I think your situation with Ryan Ward, providing him with some sort of option, would have been the best case scenario for him. That's not the rules that are set under Major League Baseball. That's an area that I would like to change. So now it's up to the Dodgers to be able to do something right by Ryan Ward.
I would totally agree with that. What do you think about the World Baseball Classic? I personally love it. I think it's fantastic that these guys get to go and play for the country. It's kind of like an Olympics feel. They get to. I can tell you, I've talked to a lot of guys that played like for Team USA, or they really felt like they had an event that they got to take part of, where they got to feel like they're representing their country. And yeah, it's awesome to be a Dodger, but it's different whenever you're representing your country. It is a experience that you can't get anywhere else. So just from that perspective, man, I hope they all go, and I hope they all go ball out. I hope they all have the special feeling. Now, some guys, like, okay, well, their great aunt had Italian blood or whatever, and so they play for the Italians. I think that's kind of a bunch of crap. Kind of reminds me of the transfer portal. But for guys like Shohei Ohtani, Yoshinobu, or whoever it may be, that want to represent their country, go do it. Love it, man. Hey, and I know it's a risk. I get it, but everything's a risk. I mean, I might go drive to the corner and go get me an oatmeal cream pie and get hit by a hay truck, right? I mean, nothing's guaranteed for tomorrow. You can't live life like that. So while you're healthy, experience everything that you get to experience. We as Dodgers fans, Shohei Ohtani has given us enough, okay, that who am I to tell him not to go live the best life that he can live? And now all I ask is, whenever he gets back to the Dodgers, as long as he's healthy, undistracted once you're back. But beyond that, man, go live your best life, man. Who am I to tell you not to do that? I'm happy for these guys. I love it when they get to do something that's important to them.
Oh, yeah, I absolutely love it, too. And the World Baseball Classic, if you have not had a chance to be able to watch that, Oh man, that is some extraordinarily good baseball, and it means so much to these players, especially the international players or players that get to play and represent their own country. Man, I remember back to the last time they did the World Baseball Classic, and they had Jose Ramos representing Panama and being able to have an opportunity to be able to play for his country, and a lot of different players.
Guillermo Zuniga, Big Z, got on the
Big
bump
Z,
too,
absolutely. A lot of these different players, and some of the players that don't always get highlighted get to go and represent their country and be able to play very competitive baseball. It is great baseball. It's great entertainment, and it means a ton to these players. And if it does that, all of those different aspects, and it helps grow the game, absolutely, you go out and try to help grow the game as much as possible, because there is a ton of talent all over the world. I want that to be showcased.
And here, I know we have a comment that the World Baseball Classic is not important. Three-peat is most important. So, I mean, that's beauty in the eye of the beholder, right? I mean, for one person, the World Baseball Classic might not be important, but I promise you, to Jose Ramos, it's been the most important baseball that he has ever played. For Guillermo Zuniga, who has made the major leagues, I promise you his best experience playing the game of baseball, his biggest experience, is the World Baseball Classic. So you can't make that blanket statement. It's different for everybody. And here's the kicker. Here's the beauty of the World Baseball Classic, Austin. Okay. First of all, you can treat it like a kind of an extended spring training. I mean, these guys know that they know you're Shohei Ohtani, right? Yeah. It's going to be maybe a little bit more intense than maybe a spring training would be. But I say that to say, if you're not comfortable with it, or if it's not important to you, like one of our posters has to say here, which is not important to everybody. I get that, right? Not everybody wants to play in the Olympics because they're tired. I get that too, right? Yeah. Okay, so if you're one of those people to where this is not an important thing to you, there's a real simple solution to that. You know what it is?
What's that, Case?
Don't play, right? I mean, nobody's saying you have to play. So, I mean, there's a real simple deal. If it's not important to you and you feel like you need the rest and you need the slower pace of getting ready. But I'll also say this, the Dodgers have done that themselves, of speeding up that pace by playing overseas in the middle of spring training. So you're kind of speaking out both sides of your mouth if you like the fact that Dodgers go showcase themselves in Asia and all these other places, but then also say you don't like the World Baseball Classic. So I think it's great. I think it grows the game. I think there is a lot of fans that enjoy it. I'm one of them. I think there's players to where there's a lot of players where it's the biggest deal to them. I think there's some major league players where it's a bigger deal than you think. And then also they don't have to play. It's not mandatory. So if it's not important to them, they don't want to play, they have the choice to decline it.
Yep, I think that's exactly right. And I don't want to create any sort of clubhouse issues by trying to prevent some of these guys, especially for some of the guys where the World Baseball Classic means a ton, by preventing them to play, to give you yourself, to eliminate the tiny risk that anything happens during the World Baseball Classic. I think you have to live with at least a little bit of risk. Let them focus and have some of the joy of the World Baseball Classic and try to go out and compete at a high level, because they're going to need to be able to compete at a high level later in the season, hopefully in October for the Dodgers, and let the Dodgers be able to worry about trying to figure out how to go out and win a third straight title. Obviously, for us here, Dodgers Dawgs, part of the Dodgers Ladies Network, we want the Dodgers to win their third straight championship. That's going to be a focus of us, but you also want to create an environment where the players still want to be able to come, and I think preventing some of the players from going out and playing the World Baseball Classic might have a negative impact on the culture and might be more of a negative than what it would be to prevent players and eliminate some of the tiny risk of injury of what would happen in the World Baseball Classic. World Baseball Classic, I believe, is going to be a very positive thing for both the players, for the game of baseball. So let's just enjoy what it is for what it is.
And that's to each their own. I'm going to enjoy every second of it. I'm not going to worry about what might happen. I can't live my life worried about what possible bad might happen. I just have to live my life based on what I want to do. And if something bad happens while I'm doing something, like I love to go cut trees at the farm. I love to get out my chainsaw and I'll cut down a 100-foot cedar tree. I did one on a road bank the other day, and I knew if it went the wrong way, I was gone. But you know what? I did it because I wanted to. Yeah. So if that tree had fallen on me and it fell on me and that was the way it went, and hey, and I laid right there at the farm, so be it. So I don't personally worry about, if worry about things in the future. I just kind of do what I want to do, and something bad happens, it happens, but that's going to happen here or there to me. But hey, I wanted to get into this. So just so you'll know, we've had some questions. I've already got Carson Hobbs in the can, and so I've already talked to him. I've already got Isaac Ione, who is a big 6'4" dude who you're going to love this guy. He actually had Ione had the brace surgery because he wanted to avoid Tommy John. That didn't work. So then he had Tommy John. So he missed his last 2 years at Oregon, which is why you've never heard of him. Big dude with a 4-seam, 2-seam. So I have Carson Hobbs, Isaac Ione already in the can, ready to go on Monday and Tuesday. And then I just interviewed Patrick Copen right before we came on. Okay, so Brady Smith, I'm going to interview Sunday. Fabian Ardaya will be Monday morning. Brooks Auger, Landon Vitterick, Chase Harlan, Kendall George, Justin Chambers, Cam Day, Ryan Ward on Wednesday, Evan Shaw, Elijah Hainline, Justin Robleski on Friday. I'm going to have in the can, going to get ready to get Antonio Knowles, Peyton Martin, and then also Eric Wedge. So these are the interviews, and I've got probably 7 or 8 out there that I've got invitations to that I haven't heard back from. You never know if you get a response back or not. A lot of times it determines on what type of season they had. If they had a good season, then you get to hear from them. If they don't really have anything that they want to talk about a whole lot, then you don't hear back from them. So that is the interview schedule coming up. You just got through hearing about it from almost all the coaches in the system. Now you're going to get to hear from, and hey, I avoided like Jose Rodriguez. I talked to him. Will Klein, I talked to him. And I talked to Dalton Rushing. So all the guys that I have extensive interviews, like Sterling Paddock, Mark talked to him extensively. And Cody Morse. There's a big, long interview with Cody Morse that Mark did. So the guys that we got, especially later in the season, that are already in the can, I didn't reach out to them. So you're going to basically, by the end of this winter, you're going to have heard from almost every assistant coach in the system. And between the regular season and the offseason, I think pretty much heard from, other than Zaire Hope and Josue DePaula, who I have no idea how to get a hold of or get their attention. Other than those two and maybe a Mike Sirota, I think you've heard from every single person in the system as well, so as far as players. So super excited about that.
Super excited about that. Highly recommend being able to tune in to each one of these interviews. These are the best stuff that we're able to do because it provides you with insight onto some of the future players that are going to be part of this Dodgers system, or future players that are going to be major league players and part of a lot of other organizations. And it shows you just how much talent is part of the system and gives you really a unique inside perspective that you don't really get anywhere else. Really, really looking forward to each one of these interviews. A ton of really good people and a lot of exciting guys, a lot of which I've had the opportunity to be able to see perform, and some of the guys that are going to be coming up, I'm excited to see in Great Lakes in 2026 or 2027.
And hey, not very many of these guys are ever going to play for the Dodgers or pitch for the Dodgers. They're told that. I mean, they're point blank told, guys, do the math. Most of you guys, almost all of you guys, aren't going to play or pitch for the Dodgers. So you say, well, why do I need to know all these guys? Well, because then you have an educated guess as to who the trade chips are, right? Like you have the ability to go through, okay, who's Rule 5 eligible, who might get taken. So can we afford to sign Edwin Diaz for a 5? You can understand all of those parts of the system a lot better if you know all of those types of guys. So it's a lot of fun to talk to those guys. It's a little bit more niche. I get that. Not everybody is totally into hearing from these guys, but we went all into the Patrick Copen deal, all the getting hit in the eye, and we spent probably 10 minutes on it. So that was super fun there. Carson Hobbs, absolutely awesome. So, hey, man, that's just about all I have to talk about here tonight on Friday night in the Big Show. Kind of a relaxed show. We've gone over an hour. I can't believe that. More of a relaxed show tonight. I know Friday nights are tough for the crowd. Not quite as big of a crowd tonight, but those of you who, hey, and by the way, Showtime, I don't know how to say this, but I'm glad you're catching on. I've been trying to tell people about Josue DePaula and Zaire Hope for a long time that, hey, you got to wait till they're in Double-A. And I've said, I don't know how many times, Austin, I've asked you this. Okay, Josue DePaula, he has lower launch angles. He's not a great defender. He's a tweener. Does he play? I mean, where is he going to play defensively? He's a guy that does not, not necessarily hit a whole lot of home runs. Now, that doesn't mean he doesn't impact him. So there's a lot of tweener to his game, right? And then Zaire Hope, there is a lot of swing and miss in that swing. So I'm glad to see that other people are catching on to the fact that You know, we'll really need to see what they're going to do in Double A, because if you have holes in Double A, they tend to find them. Diego Cartaya, Brandon Lewis, guys like that. I mean, it happens real fast. So, hey, I'm not saying it will happen, but I'm glad. And here's another reason why I say that. I think it's very good for Josue De Paula and Zaire Hope if people do actually realize that they're human, if people do actually realize these guys have real live holes that they're going to have to close. They're not automatic. It's not like, hey, if we plug them into LA right now, they're going to be all-stars, which that's what most people who don't follow prospect coverage automatically think of I mean, that killed Gavin Lux, right? And so I actually think guys like Showtime and whoever else might be having the narrative that, hey, these guys are imperfect and they actually do have quite a bit of work left to do before they become the players everybody wants them to be. That's a great thing for Josue and Zaire, because that takes enough pressure off them to where they can actually back up and fix those without feeling like they have to please everybody. And I guarantee you that's a factor.
You know what's one thing that you didn't mention out there? The talent is what you didn't say is that the talent is not there, because the talent absolutely is there for Josue De Paula and Zaire Hope. What you had mentioned is they still have areas in which they need to grow, and there is going to be bumps along the way for each guy that comes up through the system. This happens with just about every single guy, and this is a part of my frustration when it comes to frustration from Dodgers fans with some of the hitting development and be able to adapt to the system, is because a lot of people assume that it's an easy process being able to jump from AAA into the major leagues in which they can hit right away, which the Dodgers have been spoiled with some of the players that have jumped up and been able to hit at the MLB level at a pretty quick basis. But a lot of times it takes development, it takes investment, and it takes time to be able to go through each one of these jumps. And for Josue De Paula and Zaire Hope, they're not at the major league level yet. They're not going to be at the major league level likely in the 2026 season, maybe in the 2027 season if they're able to make some of these jumps, but they're still part of the development process that they have to be able to go and undergo. And I think being patient with each one of these guys, allowing them to be developed, allowing them to spend time at the AA level, which I know everybody wants to jump them immediately up to AAA, but they have to get some time at AA to be able to continue with this process, continue to develop, and allow them to be able to adapt to the Texas League. That's going to be so important, because once they get up to AAA, some of the numbers might be skewed by the Pacific Coast League environment. Let them be able to develop in the Texas Coast League, and let them adapt from high A pitching to AA pitching, which there is a difference.
Let me give you two more examples, and I love both of these guys, but one of them's not even in the organization anymore. I'm telling you, when Jose Ramos and Damon Keith hit AA, they were dudes. I mean, it was like, oh my God, these are our next two outfielders that are going to be in the major. I mean, Jose Ramos was a freaking dude, man. Damon Keith, and I can tell you this, Jose Ramos got promoted over in front of Damon Keith all the way up, and everybody's like, well, why in the hell is Ramos I mean, Damon Keith was a dude, right? And I'm not saying he still can't be, but AA has kicked their ass, or they did kick their ass. I can just tell you that. And if DK's watching this, sorry, brother, I love you, you know it, and I think you're wonderful, and I think you have a chance to be a wonderful major leaguer someday. But I think we have to be real to ourselves to realize that AA kicked Damon Keith's ass, and he's still in the process of trying to make the adjustment, okay? AA kicked Jose Ramos's ass. He led the Texas League in strikeouts, right? So I just always like to warn, you know, Diego Cartaya, AA kicked his ass. Brandon Lewis was a big, big deal till he got to AA. So you just don't know, man. And AA may kick Josue De Paula's ass, because for all of that discipline that he showed to the plate, instead of those being balls, they might be strikes. And now instead of being 2-0, he's 0-2. And now that discipline actually is not a good thing instead of being a good thing for him, right? And so, I mean, hey, it might not happen, because I'm telling you, it's happened many times before where guys that were absolute studs, absolute dudes, hit a brick wall at the AA level. So I just like to say, I'm not saying it won't happen. I think, I mean, they're great. They're great talents. And here's the card for them is that if you talk to like Sean Coyne or Dickie Joe Thon or anybody who's worked with these guys, the professionalism, the work ethic is elite for these guys. So I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm just saying this is part of my frustration with top 30 prospects list, is because it moves things way too fast for what these guys should be asked to do. And I would prefer to let's see what happens at the AA level before I actually form what my opinion is of their major league, of their ability to actually be a major leaguer to begin with, and then what type of major leaguer after that. Does that make sense? I've rambled on about that.
It puts extraordinary pressure on each one of these guys early in the process, in which development is not a linear path, in which we all expect development to be linear for each one of these guys, which means if they start to struggle a little bit, man, they start pressing a little bit because, man, I've got this profile and I should be this type of player, and all the fans start putting a lot of pressure on them, and I don't think it's a completely fair thing. So it's important to remain patient with these guys, create a culture and environment to where, man, you want these guys to be able to succeed, and you're trying to root for these guys, and you're putting them in the best situation where they can succeed and allow the development process to be able to play out. I have a lot of trust and a lot of hope for Zaire Hope and Josue Opala, two incredible players, but there's still a long ways to be able to go. So be patient with the process. The Dodgers also have time, as we had mentioned earlier with the show, with each one of these guys. They have a full year before they have to add Josue Opala to the 40-man roster, and 2 full years before they have to add Zaire Hope, or basically all the other outfielders that are mentioned within that group, onto the 40-man roster. So let this process play out. Let the development course play out. So then hopefully after 2 years, we have at least 2 of these guys that the Dodgers can look at and say, we want you to be part of the major league outfield. And that can add some youth and real talent to this team that already has extraordinary amount of talent.
You know, when I realized that the pressure, I mean, there's pressure to perform, but it's undue pressure whenever you're the number 1 prospect in an organization like the Dodgers. And it's unfair pressure, to be honest with you. It's pressure that's not beneficial for any player because it's artificial. Baseball's already too hard. You're already dealing with way too much. You don't need the artificial aspects on the outside part of it. Where I realized it was real, because, you know, you think of these guys, you're like, oh, well, they're used to this. They've always been good. They can tune it out. I sat next to Diego Cartaya's parents in June of the year, not the year he got released, but the year before that, whenever everybody started going, what the hell's wrong with Diego, right? He might, this might actually be what Diego is, you know, like this might not just be a bad snap. This might actually be Diego. This just might be Diego, right?
Yeah. I
can tell you, I sat next to his parents and they were out of their minds, worried and frantic, and just, I mean, it was miserable. You could tell they were miserable with it. And that's when I realized, man, I mean, it's a cutthroat sport, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't just that he was struggling. It was, you could tell they were dealing with the fact that he was the number 1 prospect. He wasn't living up to it, and that was just an artificially bad situation to be put. So that kind of solidified it for me that I'm not going to be a part of any of that for any of these prospects. I'm going to be a part of it that is real with what they are, what they can do, but that also it allows them to use the process in the proper way. That solidified it for me. So do you have any final thoughts here?
Yeah, no, that solidified the process for you. And when you have interaction with the players, when you have interactions with some of their families, with Casey, which Casey and I have had the privilege of being able to do, you grow a real heart for each one of these players and the talents that they have. And you want to see each one of these guys be able to succeed and put it in the environment where they can go out there and succeed. And with them having that high of expectations immediately at a level where, man, they're still part of the process of learning and development, might not be the best environment for them to go out there and have the most amount of success. That doesn't mean that the Dodgers shouldn't have high expectation for their players. Obviously, there's a certain level of which you have to play in order to be part of this system, but that extra pressure on top of that, extra expectations beyond what they can go ahead and play, it just can be a little bit too much for certain players. So be patient with each one of these guys. There's a ton of talent that's part of the system, and if they're able to reach to their talent, man, they can be something really special. It's all part of the development process. And we were looking at the Los Angeles Dodgers. They are entering into the winter meetings coming up this upcoming week, and they're going to have to make some pretty big decisions of what they want to do. And they're going to have to evaluate each one of these players and say, what do we expect for each one of these guys going forward? How do we make sure we balance the future long-term aspects with also maximizing this window of Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman? And I think as we enter enter into the winter meetings, they're going to be looking as the relief pitcher market has heated up, perhaps not an Edwin Diaz, which seems to be something that they're not completely for, especially that the 5-year mark to go out and get an Edwin Diaz. But maybe they have a different option that they want to be able to add into the mix, that they believe they can help mold and be somebody that can be a really good pitcher. And this could be something where they could also be looking at the trade aspect for some sort of outfield piece. A lot of moving pieces. Winter meetings is when stuff happens. Also, Wednesday of next week of the winter meetings is when the Rule 5 draft takes place. Wednesday, I believe at 2 p.m. Eastern is going to be the Rule 5 draft. First major league portion, then the minor league portion of the Rule 5 draft. And so it's totally possible, and I'm rooting for some of the players that are in the Dodgers system to get a major league opportunity and be selected in the Rule 5 draft.
All right, man, that's going to do it for me. I'm old, and it's Friday, and I'm ready to get up out of town. Austin, thanks. Great job, man.
Appreciate you, Case.
All you wonderful Dodgers dogs, you are the absolute best, no doubt about it. It's a great day to be a Dodger.